She who thrives. Phoenix rising. The true me. The ups and downs crazy in life. So take this journey with me. She who thrives. Yeah. Good morning, sunshines, and welcome to a podcast, She Who Thrives, a podcast about women who have faced different adversities in life and made it and became successful in their own right, whatever success means to them or to us. And today I have a special guest on, and she is here virtually, and I'm happy that she's here virtually. And she's out in Tampa, correct?
Yeah, near Tampa, but yes, Tampa.
Her name is Dana Ruth Rutherford. She's the founder of the Trauma Survivor's Guide of Life Abundantly. Thank you for signing on. I know she said she didn't realize it was her kid's spring break, so she has her hands full.
I hope that they don't.
Well, thank you for coming on. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as Janelle said, my name is Dana Rutherford, and I am the founder of the Trauma Survivor's Guide to Life Abundantly. It's a platform that it went from a blog to a brand, basically, where we're leading a global movement of empowering people after trauma. So the day-to-day life after trauma, that a lot of people don't realize that you're still in survival mode sometimes, even when the crisis is far over. But we do that through advocacy events. I have a video series called Survivor Empowered, where we talk to especially women in the community that are doing amazing things after trauma, or people that can help a trauma survivor. And we just celebrate, the resilience of being a trauma survivor, because our slogan is to rebrand the trauma survivor, hoping that if people can look at a trauma survivor as being a strong thing and a good thing, it's going to spread hope for anybody that's gone through something or that is currently going through something. So that's our goal. And we do lots of things, lots of fun stuff, and things in the community as well.
And I know you have an event coming up.
Yeah.
Correct?
Or
did it already happen?
No, it's on May 4th. It'll be Saturday, May 4th. And we have an event called Survivor Empowered Women's Conference. So it is basically part of the Survivor Empowered video series I just talked about. We are having a women's conference. It'll be the first of this kind, and it will have speakers. There's about 6 plus I'm speaking as well. So 7 speakers who are all women who are doing wonderful things in their business or calling after trauma. We'll also have a mental health panel. We're going to have a beauty, style, and health panel, which is about, like fashion and skincare and all this fun stuff that you don't think about with trauma. It actually does correspond. And then we're going to have a raffle and swag bags and all that stuff. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area, get your tickets. You can go on my website, www.traumasurvivorsguide.com, and you can find them there. We're also accepting sponsors and donations for the raffle and things like that.
I have to make it out there so I can attend that. I would like to attend and see how your events go. Because here it's, what we talked about is facing different adversities in life. And I myself have faced many adversities in my life to make it to where I'm at. And you and I have spoke a few weeks ago before you came on. So that way I like to, talk with people, see if we have a good fit. And it's not the same, but it's similar. Not everybody comes from the same journeys. We don't, we have our own journeys in life and stuff. But you did tell me you've gone through many adversities in your life, growing up and going through what you went through with your family and your past marriage. And I'm sure that's what helped you get to where you're at now and doing the Trauma Survivor's Guide. Do you want to take us down that journey?
Yeah, so you can't talk about the Trauma Survivor's Guide without being a trauma survivor. And so it's funny, whenever I was going through my own crisis, I learned so much that I wanted to start this blog, because I figured, I might as well share my journey and help somebody. And then exploded because there's so many people that were in need of the day-to-day life after trauma. And so I was one of three kids. I am the middle child, which I guess that makes me a rebel because I rebelled against, what the family did and stuff like that. And so I, unfortunately, I was raised by my parents who were fantastic people, awesome, but they, my dad broke his back on the job in 1985. And so I was in the womb with my mom, and he had to go get to the doctor. And back then they were prescribing prescription drugs, and they weren't really regulating or talking about the addiction properties that come along with that. And so unfortunately, both my parents hurt themselves and they both got hooked. And that led, obviously to a life that had a lot of instability. I remember we would call each other the prescription drug names. Like we would joke, the kids, like, oh, well, here are names more. And, that sounds horrible. And I don't mean that. They were very good people. They just were sick, And so in their mind, they even thought they were being good parents by taking the pills because it made them a little more normal. And so with that, it just was a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and a lot of growing up really quickly. And I longed to be, nurtured because I didn't get a lot of that. And I had what I now know is codependency because I was super close to my dad. And my dad was like this personality that I was his favorite. He told everybody I was his favorite. And I learned that when I pleased him, like I did things for him, I made him, food, or I hung out with him, he was happy. And so what I learned very early on is, if you just put yourself out there, no matter what you're feeling, you put yourself out there for the other person. And that's what love is. And so when I was 15 years old, I went my first year to a church camp because I think my saving grace was I went with my grandmother to church every Sunday. And unfortunately, my siblings didn't want to go. And so I just had a lot of time with her. And so when I was 15, I went to a church camp and I met a boy and we became friends, and it just seemed like we clicked so much. And, he was a foster kid. And so I was like, wow, like you really understand what I'm going through. But because his was a little more severe and he was in foster care, I always like basically gaslit myself to say, oh, but he's the one that it's really bad. And you need to make sure you're always thinking about his problems over your own. So once again, I got into that whole, codependency thing. And I just wanted to escape my home and I wanted to get out. And so when I turned 18, I decided, hey, let's move in together, but I don't want to move in together without getting married. So we decided to get married when I was 18 and he was 19, which was not the best decision. I don't recommend getting married at 18 because you don't even know who you are yet. But in that, that was in May. July of that year in 2004, my mom got sick and she went to the hospital, which was normal. They would go to the hospital. And unfortunately, back then, they would give you prescriptions very easily at the hospital. So they would do that often. And we got a call that her liver was failing. And 6 days later, she died. And we didn't expect it. It was out of nowhere. Even though she was doing pills, it was still out of nowhere. She was 44 years old. And so we were devastated. And then, I took in my dad and my little brother who was 17, and I decided one morning I had just been in the throes of taking care of everybody that I wanted to go to the mall with my then husband. And we came back and my dad, I thought he was sleeping and I went to like touch him and he was cold. And so he had died just from that day. It was just whatever he took. It was so like 3 weeks apart from each other. I was in total just, I say shock. I don't really know how to explain what I felt at that time because I literally, every time somebody, had a problem, I had to be the one to jump in. And so, when my mom died, I was taking care of my dad. When my dad died, I had to take care of my brother. And then just months later, my husband got into drugs himself. And I remember just one day the electric went off and I'm like, I called the company and I'm like, why did you turn our electric? Is there a power outage? They're like, you haven't paid the bill in 2 months. And I was like, oh, no. We paid the bill, and come to find out it was not paid. And so just 8 months after my parents died, My husband, I found out he was having an affair. They were doing drugs together, and he went with her to Pensacola, which is 7 hours away, and I was left by myself. And I didn't have any money to really do anything about it. So that was the first time I was homeless. I bounced around just friends' houses until their parents or whoever were like, "Yeah, you can't stay here anymore." And it was just a very dark time that I lost everything in a matter of just months. And through that, I really had nowhere to go. And of course, with men that are abusive, or women, men or women, they want to come back around eventually. And so he came back around, and I was really at this point where I had absolutely nowhere to go, and I had no money, and I already lost all these people. So now I'm like, I guess I just have to go back with him, because what else am I going to do? And with that comes a lot of shame and a lot of like embarrassment, but you just feel like you have nothing. You just need love. You need somebody to stay around and somebody to love you. So that's what I did. And he continued to cheat on me off and on our entire marriage. And every time it was just like feeling like somebody stabbed me in the gut. And you would think people would probably say, well, why didn't you think you thought he was going to stay faithful? When you're in that, you really believe in your heart that something's going to change. And part of that too with religion, I just felt like if I prayed a little harder, I did a little much, that he would just change. And so we had three boys through the years: Noah, Blake, and Levi, which are my three sons. And they really just gave me a new reason to like live. I never knew love like that existed until I had my boys. But it was becoming more and more apparent through the years that it was abusive. It was abusive the whole time, but I didn't realize it. Even with some physical stuff, I didn't realize it. It's just this image that a lot of people have of an abuse survivor, that they have to be every day thrown down the stairs and punched in the face, and that's abuse. It can't be a slow fade. It can't be the love bombing that happens. It can't be the happy moments that everybody sees on social media. It has to just be awful. And that's not the truth at all. As I started to get older and I went into my 30s, so we got married at 18 and now I'm in my 30s, it started to get really bad. It started to escalate. He got back on some hard drugs, and I didn't know it until it kind of happened. And when he was coming off those drugs, he was very abusive, very scary. There was moments that he was very physical. He would spit on me, pin me down. He put my head in a wall a few times, started hitting me in the head to the point that I was worried he was going to kill me eventually. And I started to think about my boys, and I started to think about them going to foster care, because if I passed away and he went to jail, they would go to foster care. Or if the system didn't think I was protecting them, they would take them. And that alone, that moment of that like revelation was enough for me to just be like, I don't care what I have to do. I need to get out. And with codependency, I was so codependent on him that it was like feeling like I really honestly believe I could not breathe. I could not live without this person. Even though he was horrible to me, I've just felt like it was that child at 15 that was like, I need to protect him. I need to do this. I need to do that. Like, he is ingrained. And so, but I eventually said, okay, I need to get out. It's going to go bad. And so I called every shelter in the area, and they were all full. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get out. Like, there's nothing to help me. But finally, a friend allowed me to come and stay. And she said, you have a few weeks and then you got to go. And she said it nicer than that, but that was the gist. And so we bounced around, me and my boys, when I was 33 in 2018. We bounced around hotels and houses until I found a little place in Lutz, which was right at this time 5 years ago. Like almost to the day we moved in. And so I tell people 5 years ago I was homeless. So if anybody can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it, I guess is what I was trying to say. And but I got a little trailer in Lutz. It was a little 2 bedroom. It was really gross. I had to like battle pests and all these things that nobody ever wants to have to deal with. But it was the first time in my life that it was me. It was me standing for me and my children. And I knew that I had to show them, my light was dim for so long. Like, they knew I was a strong person, but I don't think they could see my true strength because it was always putting everybody else before me. And so I needed to do it for myself. And I went on this journey of finding myself. And that's where the Trauma Survivors Guide really eventually would come about, because of those moments of finding myself. It's ugly, it's beautiful, it's crazy, it's a journey, but it's the best gift I ever gave myself. And I started to think about my future. And, when you're a stay-at-home mom for so long and you're trying to apply for jobs and you're trying to find something that can sustain your family, it's super difficult. And so I decided to go back to school, and I had a few credit hours from a community college. And so I got my AA, and then I decided I wanted to go get my bachelor's because I wanted to do more. And it was funny because as a kid, I always said I wanted to be a Florida Gator. Like, that was my dream. Me and my dad would watch the Gator games together. It was just something that connected me with them and him. But I never got to go because I had to drop out of school at 16 years old and get my GED. I started working very early. I was moving all the time. My parents were getting, kicked out of homes and stuff. So it was just too hard for me to go to school. But I found out they had an online program. And so I filled out the application. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and they accepted me at 34. So I got to be a Florida Gator. Finally, it was different than what I expected. I expected to be on campus, but I got to go. And at 36 years old, I never had a cap and gown on in my life. And I put a cap and gown on. I looked in the mirror. I about cried every moment of that day. And I walked the stage of Gainesville. And not only did I walk the stage of Gainesville, but they had a speaker, an online commencement speaker application. And I was like, why not? I'll try, and they messaged me back, and they're like, we want somebody that can talk about being on campus, but we want to make the first online student commencement speaker as well. So they had me do the speech, and they emailed it to the faculty, to all the students of the graduating online class. And I literally had high up faculty, the dean of the school, both of them talk to me and say, thank you. And one of them say, we showed our daughters this so that they never have to go through what you went through. And the dean was like, we didn't know if the online student, we don't see them. So we never know if we're having an impact. And your speech just meant the world to us. And I'm like bawling my eyes out because I'm like, you're thanking me? Like, I should be thanking you. And it was a very humbling experience. And when they announced my name, it was like everything I had worked for so long finally happened at 36. And I decided from that point, like, there's nothing I can't do. I can dream all my dreams. I can keep going. I can achieve, like I say, dreams don't expire. Like, this dream didn't have to go away just because it didn't happen the way I saw it. And I started working in nonprofit industry and did a lot in fundraising, and which was funny because that moment that I was told no by the shelters, it put a fire in me to make sure that nobody else heard no, because I went through it. And so I started working in, that industry and doing a lot of advocacy and a lot of marketing and social media and things like that. And I started the blog through that time as well. And, it just started taking off. And one day I was like, I really need to eventually think about doing this for myself. And because, I got into some work environments that were a little toxic as well. And so you find yourself where once you get out of abuse, man, you can see it in everything.
And you don't want to tolerate it. You're like, yeah, I've been there, done that. I don't need to deal with it again. And that negativity, I don't want any part of it. I get it. Right. I had to go through so much to be able to get to the point now that I'm like, I don't need to tolerate this. Like before, just like you said, it's people pleasing. And when you people please, you tolerate the disrespect and you allow people to cross certain boundaries that they shouldn't cross with you. And once you go through a healing patch, it's like, no, I'm never going to let anyone cross boundaries. And that's something that you continue to progress to, because I say, healing, and this, I talked about it in a different podcast, healing, it's not very pretty. Like, you have to heal and you have to face a lot of things, and it's very hard. But once you get to that point, it's like you can you can do anything. You can do anything. You have the strength to be able to do it and be like, I went through this. I'm able to go through a lot more. So
Right.
it's amazing that you went. It's not amazing that you went through what you went through, because it's, those are the adversities that we have faced, but it's amazing that you didn't allow yourself to get sucked up into that, because you could easily have gone into drugs yourself. You could have easily
Yeah.
went that route, and you chose against it. And I come from the worlds of many people say, this is all I know. And it's
Yeah.
like,
It is true.
it's like, that's all you know because that's all you want to know.
And it
Um,
gives you compassion. And I have compassion for like my siblings. I didn't share that my brother also ended up dying at 24 from pills. He overdosed. And my sister is alive, but she's been resuscitated. I mean, she should be dead and she was brought back to life. And so it allows me to have sympathy toward them because I know that that's like normal and it's more of a statistic in my family to be dead than alive. And so, who am I to judge? But it is also frustrating because you're like, can't you see that 2 + 2 = 4? I mean, don't you see it? And, but I have to have compassion and, I have to be able to say, like, they may not see it the way I saw it. And that's okay. That's their journeys too.
yeah, it's hard because you said, your dad had got hurt with his back, and that's how he got addicted to prescription meds. And that's a similar path that I had to go through with my ex-husband, where he got hurt with his back, and he got addicted to prescription meds. Thankfully, he's here on earth, but we're no longer together. But his journey with all of that, me witnessing it, it's hard because there was several times that I thought he wasn't going to make it. He wasn't going to be here. And those emotions that you go through being there and wanting to help them, but you really can't help them. But it's all the frustration, all of the grief, all of everything. And it's like you blame yourself, like, could I have done something different? Could I have helped him in a different way? But you know what? No. You couldn't have done anything differently for that person unless they want to actually change for themselves. And
Yeah. And oh,
when
sorry. I
it's
didn't mean to
addiction is hard to kick, especially when they try to go cold turkey or stuff like that, and withdrawals. It's hard for them, and it's easier for them to just go back on taking medications. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, your parents didn't make it, and that's what happened with actually my stepmom. My stepmom, she had a thing for prescription meds, and she accidentally overdosed as well. And it's hard to see that. It's hard to see people go through it, and sometimes you won't even know that person is even addicted to medication or addicted to anything really, because
It's
they
so easily
yeah,
accepted.
it's so easy, but also they know how to master pretending that they're okay.
Yeah. Well, I
So
had to come to the realization too. I think the thing that helped me heal, especially when my brother died, because I was like, he was like my little brother. I took care of him. I was very motherly to him. And I was just angry because I was like, man, he never got a shot at life. This is all he ever saw, and I just had to come to a realization that my parents, as silly as it sounds, because now I'm a mom and that'll make you have to reheal when your parents die from drugs because then you're a mom and you see what it is to be a mom and you're like, how could you ever do this to me? And, but what I realized is in their sick minds, they really were doing the best they could. They really thought they were so deceived by the addiction that they really felt like they were doing the best they could. Now I wish I could hug them and tell them, I'm so sorry you went through that. I can't imagine the pressure that was on you, especially my mom, because my mom had to kind of hold it together. And, I can't imagine the pressure of what she went through and she was doing it alone, and I kind of was starting to go down that path, not drugs, but of codependency and the things that she kind of endured. And now I can see I had 3 kids. She had 3 kids. It's very like humbling when you go through that and you can kind of look back and give some people some grace. And, even though what they did wasn't right, it's just something you have to kind of do to keep going.
yeah, and I tried to, And that's why right now, although we're not together and I had to walk away and I had to choose myself before anything, um, I'm okay with the decision of walking away because that decision helped him still stay alive. Like he made that conscious decision to stay away from drugs and do better for himself. So he has a different journey in life compared to where I'm at in my life. So just to know that he's still alive, whether he's doing anything now, I don't know, but I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for me walking away, and I would never talk bad about him because, like you said, they're good individuals. They just had an addiction, and he's a great person. He just had demons that he had to battle and that addiction that he had to battle. And but going through that journey that I went through with him gave me the experiences to be a stronger person, to see what and come to the realization of a lot of the things that I went through. And not only did I have to heal from him, but I also had to heal from my own childhood trauma, dealing with certain things. So I'm grateful that we did divorce, because then with that divorce came with so many great things behind it. I don't say that it was great that he went through it. I don't say that it was great that we loved each other at one point and then we no longer love each other anymore. Those are hard things to face, but what comes from it has been so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I see with you that's what it is. Like you went through so many things, so many deaths, and you're creating something different so that way we can break curses, break those generational curses and curses that we face, so that way other women or even men who are going through something similar know that they're not by themselves. And there is a community, because sometimes we had to stay quiet for a lot of the stuff that we experienced. And sometimes we don't want to tell people because we don't want pity from other people. So this is the reason why I do this podcast, so that way people, other women, other men can see that they're not alone in these journeys. There's other people that have gone through it and have overcame it. And still, we struggle. I'm sure you struggle with the thought of your parents and your brother and whoever else you lost in your life. So with that, when someone comes to you or you see someone experiencing what you've experienced, what do you suggest to them to do?
Well, a lot of what we do with the Trauma Survivors Guide is about spreading hope. And so I never say that it's going to be easy. I'm very real. I tell them that the best thing to do is to allow yourself to grieve. I didn't allow myself to grieve for a long time, and it was one of the worst things I ever did to myself. And once I allowed myself to grieve each one individually, my brother, for instance, I had a baby 6 days before he died. So,
Oh, wow.
it was just not a time to grieve. Yeah. I mean, it felt like every time something big happened, something bad happened. I got married and then they both died. I have a baby and then he died. And so but my friend's brother unfortunately passed away in a very similar way. And it was weird because it was about almost 10 years apart and she was one of my very best friends. And so I was able to actually grieve with her and grieve the death of my brother through what she went through. And it happens like that sometimes. You don't want to be selfish and when your friend's going through it. So, I didn't want to make it about me. But when she wasn't around, I was grieving too. She just didn't see it as much because I wanted to make sure I was strong for her. But I always talk about the good. I never just tell my story about the bad. So for instance, now I have within 5 years, because like I said, it's about 5 years ago to the day, I went back to school. I got a degree. I remarried. I found a man that I love dearly who treats me well. And he has, as of December, he legally adopted my boys. And so my boys are now the same last name as me again. You want to talk about breaking generational trauma and curses. they took his last name. They cut off the last name of their past. And so every time their name is spoken, it's a new name. And so we believe in that very much. We're very much about a family that we speak the best we can. Now, we all have our moments, don't get me wrong. Like, these kids drive me nuts half the time. I love them dearly because, and two, they're all boys. Like, I don't want them to grow into men that either abuse or are abused or anything like that. So I'm trying to show them an example. But, I've been able to start the Trauma Survivor's Guide to Life Abundantly as my business. And I just recently launched A Million Dreams Creative Consulting, which is another business where I'm helping other people to achieve some of the stuff that I've learned through the years. And, my events, I plan to do more events, and I plan to do some workshops, and I do a lot of content creation. I do, I guess, influencing, you could say, affiliate marketing. And that all is stemming from that. And there's just a lot of cool things happening. So I tell people, look, it was 5 years. 5 years day to day seems long, but 5 years really goes by in a blink of an eye. And that's all it took for me to change so much in my life. And I don't say that because it was easy. I have had to work so hard, even in business, for people to take me seriously, for people to, when I was that girl on social media and everybody wanted to laugh at how much I was posting, I'm like, you don't see the vision because it's not your vision, but you will one day. And now nobody laughs at me. In fact, you're asking me how to do it. So you have to deal with shutting out the naysayers, even if they're people you like. I've had to let go of friendships and family members because there comes a point that when you have a mission and you're called and you have a purpose, you have to block out the noise. And if they're not willing to respect your boundaries and your need for that, then you have to keep them at a distance. They become acquaintances, or they just become nothing in your life. But you just have to keep going on those days that feel like this is pointless. I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know what's happening. You just keep going.
I don't know if you did say you went to church and stuff. So with me, I always have to take a step back and just ask God, like, what is my direction? What do you want from me? What is it that you want from me? Because when you get to a certain point where you're getting close, a lot of things start going wrong. And then in every direction, you're getting things thrown at you. And it's like, what in the world is happening? Like, I don't want to give up, but you're not making it easy for me to get there. And it's like, I have to tell myself, you've gotten through a lot worse. You can get through this. And I have to talk, like, guide me, I'm listening. And then that's when I see things just start coming. All right, it's happening. But yeah, it's a lot of people give up when things start getting rough. And I say, just keep on going through it. Because it's going to be easier at the end. And all of that is just going to be an experience for you. And then you're going to be like, man, I did that. And you're going to be very proud, because if it came easy and you were able to get to point A to point B very easy, you're going to be like, oh, whatever. You're not going to have that sense of accomplishment if you would have done the A to B, but it went all around the world and then got to B. So, I say just keep on doing it, but keep on going. And I see that it's hard. And I went through the same thing of having to block out certain people, having to lose a lot of people in your life when you're going through a different journey. And I said this before too, some people are only meant to be in the unhealed version of you. So I've seen, I don't know if you know who Lala Anthony is, but she talks about in a podcast that some people fortunately come with an expiration date. You just need to learn or determine which one has those expiration dates and be okay with that. Because not everybody's meant to be in the next phase. Not everyone.
And not everyone's supposed to be in every season of your life, as far as even people that are good. I mean, there's some people that they haven't necessarily wronged me, but we're moving in two separate directions. And I'm on a mission. Like, I'm a very passionate person. And so when you for so long you can be around people that aren't as passionate, and it's
Right.
okay. There's times you need to like chill. But at this point in my life, when I'm really trying to like move and go and do what God's telling me to do, I need to be around passionate people because it just feeds that energy in me. So I think sometimes it's okay to just drift apart too. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's how life goes sometimes.
Yeah, and when something goes sour, I always try to look at it and say, what did I learn from that? What did I learn from that relationship? Did I take anything from that relationship? Was that the relationship just negative or positive? What can I take away? Because you can always take away something, whether it's a lesson or if they actually taught you something or the experience actually taught you something. So it's never a waste of time, because some people are like, oh, so that's just a waste of time. Then no, it's never a waste of time, because if you really look at it, you're learning something.
Yeah,
There's a
you learn
lesson.
way more in the hard times. You learn so much more when you're struggling than I
Yeah.
think even in the good times.
Oh yeah.
If you think about all the moments in your life that you got revelations or that you feel like something happened, it's because it usually had a hard time along with it. And then, it happened. And so I try to tell people, don't take every opportunity to learn through what you're going through, because I know it's hard and the days are long, but the years are short, so to
Yeah.
speak. It can seem in those days like it's excruciating.
Mhm.
And it can feel like I tell people, when I left my ex-husband, now I see it and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I can't imagine my life anymore with him, but at that moment, I thought that you would have like ripped my two arms off and like told me to live without like it felt like it was just this horrible loss. And it's because it was my addiction. It was my codependency was my addiction. And so I had to go cold turkey, so to speak, and it was not easy. And so we all have something that we have to battle a little harder. And that thing can feel, it's almost like God saying, if you can give me that thing and you can trust me, if you jump, I'll catch you. And that's exactly what he's done.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was a great one. I like what you said there. Um I know this, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but we're coming up short on time. I mean, we could continue talking and talking, because there's so much. You face so many adversities. I face so many adversities. There's some similarities in there, and not everybody understands it. And when you come across someone that understands it, it's like, oh my God, yeah, 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 and you want to keep on talking about it. So I'm grateful that you came on and talked about your experiences. And I want to talk about, before we go, I want to talk about if there was anything that you want to express to women that have gone through what you've gone through. What would it be? That one thing, that one major thing that not everybody talks about.
I think that my issue my entire life has been with my self-worth. And I think that it's come up in everything I do. So every season, whether it's good or bad, it's been about my worth. When I went into business, who are you? Nobody's going to want to hear what you have to say. Like, you're just this and that. When it came into my relationships, you need to martyr yourself basically, which sounds horrible, but it's the way it felt. Love hurts and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I think when you really take, and I don't mean you just like, read some quotes and, hashtag it on social media, self-love and all this stuff. Like when you really dig into your worth and you know who you are and you know who you are in Christ, when you really go on that journey, you start to like see things and you'll actually get offended at like putting yourself down after that, because
Right.
it's not about cockiness, because I still struggle with this. It's not something that comes easy to me. It's more about knowing what you deserve
Mhm.
and changing what you think you deserve before. I thought that I deserved to live in the poverty mindset that I didn't have much growing up. So when I went into business, it was easy to think like, you're never going to achieve this or that. So you should just stay in your lane. When I went into, friendships, but what it comes down to is when you truly start to realize what you deserve, then you will flourish and you will continue and you'll keep going on those days that you feel like even you're struggling to know who you are.
Yeah, that mindset, that's the mindset for everything. And I always ask everyone that comes on, and I know you've mentioned it already, but I want to say it again or ask a question. Do you see yourself successful?
I do. I think that if you looked at my bank account right now, you may not think so much because, I have kids and I'm growing a business and, starting businesses, it's not as
It's
fruitful in the
hard.
beginning, but yeah, but if you talk about resilience and you talk about just breaking the statistics of being alive and not on drugs and living a life abundantly as my business states that I feel like you could give me all the riches in the world, but I have my soul, I have my relationship with God, I have my children, I have my family. And so, yeah, I would say that I am successful. And if you would have asked me that a few years ago, I probably would have said no.
Well, yeah, I see that a lot of people measure success completely differently. And that's why I say, success in your own right and how you feel is success, because it's not always monetary. I recently had told someone, you know what, my goal in life was to be able to sustain a roof over my head, food on the table, my lights on, my gas on, all of that. And I've been able to do that all these years in my adulthood without public assistance or without anything being turned off. Knock on wood, God forbid anything happen now. But, that to me is I made it. And now anything extra has been just a bonus and a blessing. So that's where I measure my success. But yeah, thank you for coming on. And if anyone wants to be able to reach out to you and find you, where can they find you?
So if you go on Instagram, my handle is at Dana Lynn Rutherford. So DANALYNN, and then Rutherford is RUTHERFORD. I know that's long. And then my website for the Trauma Survivor's Guide to Life Abundantly is www.traumasurvivorsguide.com. A Million Dreams Creative Consulting is www.amilliondreamscc.com. Gosh, there's so many ways now. Facebook, I went there. We have Facebook. I have my personal. I also have TikTok. That's Dana_Rutherford. I mean, gosh, I have
You're
an
all over
Amazon.
the place. Okay. Thank you for coming on. Stay on for a little bit. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching on YouTube or on listening to our podcast. Please do me a favor. Share, review, and let me know what you're thinking with these podcasts. So until next time, thank you.